All right, so we're COMP2068, and this is week 1, lesson 1, part 2, and I wanted to give you kind of a preview of some of the stuff we're going to be doing. So one of the first things I'd like you to do, though, before we do any of that stuff is let's do a little bit of a poll. I know this is kind of crazy, right? I want to do a little bit of a poll with you guys right now, and if you want to text learn to 37607, right? We're going to do what's your favorite browser, the most popular browser that you would say. So if you text learn in caps to 37607, and then it's either an A, B, C, or D response. You can also go online if you don't want to text at pollev.com/learn. All right? And then once you guys start answering, we'll have some results. All right, we got some Firefox. We got a Firefox person, right? And we got a Chrome person. Come on, IE. It's you're the most popular browser. What do you think the most popular browser is out there? If you want to say it's your favorite browser, that's okay too, right? Because it'll probably be the most popular one. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay if it's your favorite, because most likely it's mostly the most popular browser. Chrome. Okay, we've got a few with Chrome. We've got 2 with Firefox. 4 with Chrome. Oh, we have a Safari out there. This is good. I'll give you a few more minutes. Six, 7 responses. 8 responses. Come on, guys. So it looks to me like, a lot of you think that, Chrome is the most popular, or maybe it's your favorite one. I'll wait a couple more minutes. Has everyone done it yet? I'm sure not everyone has, right? I'm seeing some people are, no, you haven't done it yet? Oh, wait, I see a Safari, right? Got more people Safari. What was that? You answered wrong? Yeah. It's okay. That's all right. Your favorite? Whoa, hey, we got IE. All right. Popular. Let's cut it off. For those of you who haven't responded, I'm going to stop the poll right now and leave it. So again, we have 1 IE, 5 Chrome, Safari 2, Firefox 2, right? A place I like to go to check all this stuff out, right? Because I sit there and I go, hey, if I'm going to build a website, or if I'm going to do some games or whatever, I gotta figure out which browser is the most popular one, let's say, because that's the one I'm going to be serving. I need to know my audience, and in order for me to know my audience, I'm just going to go to...
is that like a favorites folder?
Oh, give me a second. Sorry, from June 2014. Jan to Jan. There we go. I'm just going to update the graph for a second. So this site here, gs.statcounter.com, is one that I like to use to talk about, if I was going to compare, if I will kind of do some market research. This is worldwide, right? Thank you for that. So from a worldwide perspective, I want to see, hey, what's the most popular browser out there? What's the browser that's you think it's IE?
Yeah, because it comes with Windows, and people tend to use that.
Man.
Oh, wow.
It's Chrome, right? And this is worldwide. Now, IE is a second, by no means a close second, right? But it's all versions of IE, all versions of Chrome, right? And if you see, poor Opera is way down here, right? So we don't talk about Opera anymore too much, right? As far as, okay, and there's some other stuff here. What about, that's worldwide. What about just if I was to localize it here in North America, right? Because I didn't want to say just Canada, because, we get influenced by the states a lot, yeah.
Does that also include phone browsers?
Everything, right? So I'm going to filter it in a second. So again, gs.statcounter.com if you want to try it yourself. Because really what we want to try and do is, if I'm going to build a game, I got to make sure that we're supported. Let me just change this from, I want to include mobile, and I want to take console out as an example, right? So desktop, mobile, and tablet. And this will be everything in a second. So everything in North America, not including console. And then I can break it down by browser type. So
can you only check it by continent? Or
I can check it worldwide.
By country?
country.
Can you check what it is in India?
I could. Give me a second.
You know what, I'll just do that.
Why don't you just do it on your own? Yeah, there you go. gs.stackcounter.com. Takes a second to do it, but yeah, India definitely. So Chrome in North America and IE, now it's a closer second here. So if you notice, market share-wise, 33% of users use Chrome. IE, again, 22%, number 2. Safari, 12. Firefox, 11. iPhone and Android are got a nice piece of market share, 10%, right? Which means that we shouldn't really discount mobile. Fortunately, we just don't have time to do everything with mobile in this course. I would love to do a mobile course. We just don't have time for it. And in my advanced Java course, which is after this, if you guys are with me, right, then we'll be doing Android in the second half, right? So we'll do advanced Java the first half, Android the second half for the advanced Java portion. And if things go well, next week I'll be starting the iOS course, right? So that's going to be happening after 6 o'clock. Okay, so if you notice, so we got Android, we got the Opera's way down here and stuff like this. What about if I was to choose, instead of just all browsers, I want to kind of break it up by browser version, right? Because that's kind of another thing to tell, right? Which one? If I was, I mean, I don't want to completely discount IE because a lot of people do use IE. But which version of IE should I target, really, if you think about it? Should I target 7, 6, 8? I say my view is don't worry about 9 or if 9 or higher is okay, right? If you're going to be targeting your browser. Look at this now. iPhone 0 or iPhone is what it comes up as 10%. IE 11, and that's Windows 8 if I'm not wrong, right? Safari iPad on iPad, Chrome for Android, right? So if you notice, these are really so Android. So you see how important mobile is, right? IE 8, right? It's still up there at 5% market share. And then we go to Android, Chrome 35, right, which is kind of one of the latest versions of Chrome. IE 10, IE 9, so a bunch of different versions of IE. And then we get into Chrome. And then the other bucket, all the other stuff, Safari and blah, 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 have the majority share of 37%. So it's interesting to look at it both by browser version and by the most popular browser. On that, you know, we're going to be using HTML5, right, and CSS. And I always like to use HTML5test.com to figure out what my browser scores in terms of compatibility with HTML5 and the latest versions of HTML, right? Things like multimedia and semantics, elements and audio, all these different things depending on the browser. Now right now I'm using Chrome 39, right, in OS X Yosemite, right? I'd say that's correct. But what about if I was going to go into the Windows side? So here's Windows. I've just got it in a virtual machine, right? And I want to use, this is Windows 8. So here's Chrome, and I'll do the same thing in Windows 8, right? 512. So 512, both Chrome 39. It works just as well in on both sides, both platforms. What about Safari? So here's Safari Windows.
Wait, are you running an iOS on a Windows? Or Windows on iOS on
I've got Windows 8 running in a virtual machine. 455 out of 555 for Safari in Windows 8, right? 512, 455, right? And then we got, let's try our lovely IE, right? So this is IE 11, right? So it's latest version, not including Windows 10 if you're in a Windows 10 environment, right? Which is something different altogether. Poor IE, 376.
Windows 10 is out now.
It is, yeah, as a preview. Again, Internet Explorer 11 on Windows 8.1, 376 out of 555. That's okay. What about your mobile browser? Try that. So if I pull up my iPhone 6, and if I go to, let's say I use Chrome, right? And if I go into, and for those people at home, you can't see this now because, you know, I'm kind of actually showing my phone. So my phone, it's hard to see, but it's 427. My iOS, iPhone 6 with the, with Chrome, 427. What do you got there? On Chrome on Android? Okay, so a little bit better for you guys, right? Safari isn't much behind, but as you can see, it's still not as good as Chrome for Android. Still not as good as as Chrome for the desktop for Windows, but still much better than, in terms of compatibility, than almost any other browser. It's interesting that for you guys to test that out. One other thing I like to use when I test stuff out is there's a site, and I'll just do this on the Windows side, it doesn't really matter. It's called caniuse.com, caniuse.com. And caniuse.com kind of focuses on specific things with HTML5 and CSS, right? And one of the things I like to check is, hey, can I use Canvas with my browser? So if I click on Canvas, well, yeah, most browsers, from IE to iOS Safari and so on, right? It shows you that Canvas is a good platform for us to make games with, right? Because it's supported across most browsers, right? Yeah, so I'm just using Canvas Basic for it. If you notice, 89% of browsers support Canvas, which is kind of cool. So can I use? If I go to something else, though, like, for example, the audio element of HTML5, we have some issues. It says 89% compatibility, but there are some problems. And as you'll note, when we get into doing audio, HTML5 audio with iOS, there's some tricks and tips that we got to use to make it work properly when we go into a mobile device. So here's Opera Mini. Obviously, that's not cool. And we have some issues with IE, right, IE8. And of course, most browsers support sound, which is kind of good. So kind of features that are okay. What about something like drag and drop, right? Drag and drop makes sense from a desktop perspective, but even an iOS and an Android browser, it doesn't work. Why? Because it's not so much a should I, can I use it? It's the answer to the question is, should I have drag and drop in a mobile environment? And the thing is, and that's why a lot of these browsers don't support it, because it's not a viewport scenario, it's a usage scenario. Should I use it? And the answer is probably not for drag and drop. And that's why they don't develop it, not because they can't do it, right? So this is kind of a nice little site to figure out, hey, can I use this or can't I use this kind of thing. And it tells you the compatibility across browsers if you want to use a particular piece of technology, right? Like an example, another really cool one would be WebGL. If you want to do, if you want to use WebGL, right, to kind of do 3D graphics, right, with your on Canvas as an example, or on with in a browser, right? So if you notice 8, 9, and 10 of IE, forget it. WebGL won't work, right? So you have limited. Still, there's a lot of people who use 8, 9, and 10. So that means there's going to be people that you're not going to reach with WebGL still. Firefox, if you notice, it's not perfectly green. You've got some compatibility. There's some known issues, and iOS Safari purely supports it. But Android browser, if you notice, it's not purely green. It's kind of that puce green color, which means there are some issues with Android as well for WebGL. So should I do 3D graphics at this stage with, if I was going to do a 3D game and I was targeting mobile and maybe IE? Probably not. I'm not sure that I would do it in a browser nowadays. It wouldn't hit everybody. How about that? But would I do a 2D game? Yeah, that makes sense because Canvas is supported across browsers. So these are the kind of choices we use. When we use this kind of stuff, when we say, I'm using JavaScript, right? And I'm using, depending on the browser, I want to make sure that the features that I want to use are cross-compatible, right? Or the most compatible across all browsers. Okay. So that's kind of my intro on, hey, should I use it? Can I use it? Again, are we going to be doing things with mobile in this course? Time permitting, we might talk about it a little bit, but I'm not going to be focusing on it because there's just too much to do, right? As you'll know shortly. Okay, so that's that. So we talked about the environment. I said, hey, we're going to be doing JavaScript primarily next week, starting off next week. And I'm going to be focusing on things like with the Windows environment, you get a Windows machine in front of you. And so I'll be talking about Visual Studio. Why Visual Studio? Because it should be fairly something you understand right now. You've probably used it in C# programming, right? You could probably use it with ASP.NET. Rich Freeman does an ASP.NET course, right? So he's probably talked about that as well. So you've seen it a couple times. So it's not a foreign environment. And it supports TypeScript. And that's the real reason why I'm using it. Also, if you're a Unity programmer and if you like to do 3D game scripting, Visual Studio is not a bad little scripting environment. Okay, so let's go back. So again, I'm using Visual Studio 2013. And again, I mentioned the fact that when I use Visual Studio 2013, I use it because of Visual Studio Web Essentials. And that's why I want to target that, right? In this course, when I share stuff with you in terms of code, I'm going to be using GitHub, right? So I've kind of put up this little assignment just for today for people who are here. People who aren't here, tough. You won't get your mark. People who are here, I'd like you to go up on GitHub, and if you're not registered already, I want you to register for GitHub and get yourself registered. If you don't know what GitHub is, you can find it at github.com, right? And when I say I want you to register for it and submit it, if you go to Blackboard and you submit a text document or a comment with a link, if you've already been with me, then you've already got GitHub, chances are, right? And all you need to do, this is a kind of a free 1% out of the 100% that you're going to get for this course, almost like a bonus mark, if you will. Go up, sign up for GitHub because you're going to need it for all my assignments, right? So go to github.com, sign up for a free account, and then when you do, I want you to send me the link to your GitHub, right? Now I have my picture on there. You don't have to have your picture on there. It comes with a Gravatar, but if you like, another question I had from another class is, what about gravatar.com? Could I kind of sign up to gravatar.com, which you can, and then take one picture, and then it can go across LinkedIn, GitHub, WordPress, all that kind of stuff. It's good across Facebook, right? You can sign up Twitter with it, whatever you want. So your picture will be the same picture used on all these accounts, which is one of the issues we have, right? So it'll also be good for GitHub. So gravatar.com is something that you can use, and so that the picture remains the same and consistent across all accounts.
How do I send you my GitHub?
You're going to go up on Blackboard. There's an assignment called GitHub Signup, right? And you're going to submit your first assignment to me on Blackboard, either with a text document that says, here's my GitHub link, right? Or I believe if you just put a comment would be enough, which is, here's the link to your GitHub. Okay, so Gravatar at GitHub. I'll give you a chance to do that while I continue talking. Right?
I'm signed in, but it just says github.com, doesn't say / my name.
That you have to go into your name. So you have to actually go into the name itself, top right corner. My GitHub name is Sviopis. You click on there, then it'll give you the link to your site. Okay, and we'll talk more about GitHub over the couple weeks because I want you to understand how to collaborate with your partners if you're going to have a partner, fork different projects on GitHub, and so on. So GitHub is one of the things we're going to use. In every assignment, you're going to have a version control requirement on GitHub. So that's why I'm making it mandatory for you to sign up. Yes? As long as you send me a link that I can get to it, and it's got to be, you're going to have to be able to step back. So it can't be something like Dropbox. No. Right. What was that? It's fine. Send me the link. As long as I can get to your files, right, I'm good to go. You don't have to use GitHub. I make it GitHub mandatory for people who don't have any kind of version control, right? And also GitHub is nice because it kind of connects nicely with Visual Studio 2013. That's why I'm making it happen. Whereas maybe for you, you need a plugin or something else, right? Or maybe it won't even work, right? Okay. I know. It's okay. Some people don't like GitHub, but it's free and open source. And Perforce. Okay, so you've got your stuff on GitHub and and all that kind of stuff. Well, we talked about games. We're going to be making games, right? And we talked about how making game interfaces are probably the most challenging things that you probably do, right? When you make your games, though, I want you to think about things like it's going to be a 2D arcade kind of game that you're going to be creating at the end. So try not to think about things like, don't make a chess game. I recommend that would be highly bad for you to do, right? And when I say highly bad, I mean it's really bad, right? Why? Not because chess is not a cool thing to do. It's just really complex. The AI required can drive you into a black hole that you'll never escape from, right? And I really don't want you to go into a black hole. So don't choose a project that is going to be something that's going to be puzzle-based. Like, for example, creating a Sudoku game. That would be bad, right? It's going to run you into havoc. Not a lot of graphics involved there. And it's a lot of logic on the back end that's probably going to make your life hell. So please don't do that. Focus on arcade games, classic arcade games. When I talk about classic arcade games, there are some interfaces that you can look at on the Mac and PC, and I think it's also available on Linux if you're a Linux guy. There's a program called MAME, right? I got MAME OS X. I'm sure there's MAME for Windows, and I got a couple of these games from the 80s that I want to show you now. One of them is this Star Trek game that I used to love when I was a kid. I think it was made in '77 or something like that. Or here's the Sega game, right? And so the actual ROM, if you can hit the lights so that we can see. You don't have to hit all the lights, you just dim them a little bit. Thanks, man. What we have is a classic vector-based arcade game, right? That's good. And the way it works is that you have, this is what I base my project. Whenever I give you guys a project, actually I'm giving myself a project, right? So I do what you do. That's typically what I try to do. So I can kind of face the same challenges and so on as you guys do. So this is one of the first games that I used to play when I was at the arcade that I liked. One more time, just in case I die. Very simple, right? You have your Enterprise, right? You have some firing mechanism, right? And if I want to protect my starbase, nice and easy, right? So elements of the interface that you can see. Right? I killed that one. Very easy. So a vector game, it gets a little hairy at times. Come on. Again, come on. There we go. Kill it with one. If you lose your shields, you got a power up if you hit the starbase, right? If I go to the starbase, I can dock, and I got some standard, some classic sounds, right? And if I get hit again, badly enough, I'm in trouble. Right? Kill me, kill me, kill me. As you can see, classic arcade game. Simulation complete, right? Another one that was really popular at the time was something called Golden Axe, right? And again, it's winners don't use drugs. Winners don't use drugs, guys. Okay. Standard platformer, I would say, right? This was in the arcade in the 70s and the 80s, but hey, don't hit me. No, that's not what I wanted to do. What do you see here? Parallax background, right? Oh, that's not what I wanted. Wait a minute. I'm in trouble. Hey, that's my interface. Anyways, you get the picture. Right? One more. Gauntlet. Yeah, there's no joystick. Yeah, it's not going to happen. Valkyrie Elf and Wizards. Yeah, well, Elf is about to die, right? The idea here is that these are all the original ROMs, like I said, and the challenge is that I'm trying to figure out the way to start this bloody thing. Control. There's no mouse, man. There's no mouse. Mouse control doesn't work on this stuff. Anyway, I'm not going to go into it. But the next thing that I want you to think about is, so these are the games. When I say make a game, what I mean is, hey, here's a classic arcade game. This is what you can base your game on, the idea behind it. You can actually probably find most of the graphics nowadays for these arcade games online. And some of the places you can find them, I'm going to share with you links as we go, where to find your graphics, how to do your stuff, right? So do I expect you to be a graphic designer here today, right? No, the answer is no, right? Do I need you to understand how to use basic graphic tools? Yeah, well, we'll talk about them. And you can use things as low as Paint to as high as Photoshop. It's up to you, right? I'm not going to discount the ability for you to do it, but I'm not going to, kind of say in my head, you're required to do it, right? Because that would be kind of weird, right? This is a programming course, not a graphics course. And so you can use graphics that are available online. So in that, when I made my game, and I kind of have a live version of mine on a friend's website here, I kind of created the same kind of game called Starbase 12. I kind of did this last semester with, the idea that I was going to make a Starbase Defender kind of game, just like I played for you guys just now from 1977. Right. So here's the start. I stole the music from Star Trek, the latest one. Some instruction screens. Okay, and I play the game.
Entering sector 0.
Very similar, right?
1.
Here's my ship, right? 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 Particle effects.
0.2.
I've got to defend my starbase. Things that I didn't get around to doing. Complex AI.
Sector 0.3.
And again, if you notice, there's only like one ship right now. So this is like the learning curve, right?
Entering sector 0.
When it comes to 0.5, it's hard to survive beyond that. Okay. 2 ships. Each shield has its own facing. And when I use my photons, they're used.
Entering sector 0.7.
You get the idea. Come on, buddy. Particle effects, instead of explosions with animation. Okay, we guys. Yeah. No, I don't want to die. I want to recharge. Die. Right, so you see, oh, now we're getting challenged. I'm not going to be able to do it for long, but I'll die now. I know. So there's issues. There's issues, right? Is it a perfect game? Absolutely not, right? It took me 3 weeks to write, right? So it was something that didn't happen right away, right? Particle effects, by the way, in this as well, right? So we know particle effects are good. A little bit of sad music, right? We have to have those too, because we died. And if you notice the whole time, pretty much I stuck around the 57 frames per second rate, right? Which isn't bad. That was one of the games we built. There's some really, really cool projects last semester as well. I might share some of those with you as we go forward. But the other thing we built was and it's up on GitHub for you, by the way. Up on GitHub, if you want to look at the code for how I did all that, some of it's messy. But I've got Starbase 12 version 4 up on GitHub. So if you wanted to go look at the code, just go on GitHub, and in there you can see all my scripts, all my assets, all my images, right? All the stuff I use, it's all up there for you as example code. So it's not something that, you know, as an example, you won't have access to seeing. One of the other things we did was you're going to be asked to make your own slot machine. I've put my slot machine up there for you to see, right? And you might see stuff up there as an example. When I put it up there, you might say, hey, I've got a piece of code up there, Tom. Is it okay if I use some of the stuff that's up there? And the answer is always going to be, if I put it up there for you, it's yours to use, right? So there's always going to be some kind of code base. I'm not going to ask you to do things from scratch. And in real life, we don't do things from scratch most times, right? We base it off somebody else's code, typically, right? Or we collaborate with other people to create something together. So that's what you're going to be doing in this course. So before we continue on, I want to take a short break, 5 or 10 minutes, do a little bit of bio break, and then we'll come back, we'll do the second half. All right? Yeah, some people might need that kind of thing. All right? I'll pause it here.